This puts us under an obligation to be the protector and trustee of lesser forms of life. Biologist and humanist Julian Huxley said that the role of man, whether he wants it or not, is to be a leader of the evolutionary process on Earth, and his job is to guide and direct it in the general direction of improvement. Well, okay. Doing so, no doubt, responds also to the long-term interest, he says, of our own species. Ikeda, all of us should realize that man is not master but mediator on Earth. Subjecting nature to his own will is for man to behave in the fashion of a totalitarian government. Okay. So, first of all, to Buddhists, I mean, yeah, forcing others, certainly human beings, but others to one's own will is a great evil. Evil thing. In the fashion of a totalitarian government. All people must come to understand that acting tyrannically towards nature invites our own destruction. Realizing that we owe our very existence to them, we must do all we can to help the non-human forms of life on the planet flourish. And coming up very strongly. Third world. I'm 2/3 of the way through it. Now, the third world. To develop educationally and otherwise, the third world should do its best to lessen its dependence on the North, in which not even North-South interdependence should be the cornerstone. Not just enough to be interdependent. Southern nations need something else, and that is the enhancement of their own self-reliance. Secondly, in order to succeed, they must take a hard look at one of their major shortcomings, their fragmented political organization. They need to coordinate their long-term policies, or better still, come together in regional unions, communities, or confederations. If self-reliance is the path the third world wants to follow, it must be a collective self-reliance. Not just one by one, but a collective self-reliance of larger, relatively homogeneous geopolitical or geoeconomic areas ready to adopt common policies and constitutions, and internal division of labor and so on. In other words, they've got to do it on their own and go to it. How do we put this? Then it comes back to something which is, in a way, I've never quite heard it throughout my life, I don't think. Modern education sometimes concentrates on human rights and plays down human obligations. Yeah. Still, we should probably now stress obligations first, and not see the civil rights of our fellow trampled underfoot or animals grossly ill-treated or ruthlessly eliminated. Okay? Should we not also adopt a much broader view of our liabilities toward upcoming generations and future life generally? All this, okay. Unless a radical reconceptualization of man's place in the universe occurs soon, the collapse of some natural systems is inevitable. In particular, this applies to our precious soils and fresh water. Large areas of land and vital ecosystems should be kept untouched, not only as reserves, but as sanctuaries where nature can continue its evolution undisturbed. That is, for the most part. And exploitation must also be carried out in a spirit of conservation and harmonious development of all peoples and nations. We note, he said, that no peace with nature will ever be possible unless peace reigns among mankind. I think is quite a statement, and not bad. If we take control ourselves, how are we going to do, No peace with nature will ever be possible unless peace reigns among men. Universal education inevitably demands the assistance of the state. But we both will agree, he and Ikeda, that states mustn't attempt to educate only skilled cogs for their own industrial or political machines, but must try to cultivate well-rounded, self-reliant, individual human beings. Whatever the educational system, the humanities are sacrificed nowadays for technical or scientific studies and for training in all fields of the economy, which is considered the main pillar sustaining modern societies. I, he said, this is Peccei talking, am firmly against the priority and predominance given in curricula to disciplines dealing with the world of the physical, the measurable, the producible, and the consumable, since this implicitly means discrimination against the world of ideas. Yeah, they follow after it. Most of all, in my view, we need to think on it here, what could be more Aurelian than this? We need to think in terms of wholes, to reason about quality, to reason about the whole thing, not just pieces. To compare the imponderable, to judge critically, and to distill from all this a sensible philosophy of life. When university students receive any ethical or moral training at all, it's of the kind that tells them to live in an honest, upright way. Then, when they're on their own in society, they often find themselves in conditions in which honesty and uprightness lead to failure. In other words, you mustn't strain things too much. We must try to alter this society, and therefore a new kind of learning is essential. We must remember that the desire for material profit and social glory have been the major stimuli in the forward drive of science and technology in the modern age, and in the tendency to regard progress as the paramount good. Curbing the desire for profit and fame could go a long way to decelerating the emphasis on progress that today lays waste large stretches of our environment and puts humanity itself in jeopardy. Yeah, if we could curb the desire for profit and fame. If achieved, we might then establish as our primary goal consumption commensurate with nature's regenerative powers and a lasting life of happiness for all of us and all other life forms. All other life forms. The human revolution is more a change of course than the achievement of a goal. At present, we find ourselves at one of the danger points in human history. We must act at once to change our course. Buddha, Confucius, Socrates, Plato, and many others of the great men of the past commanded a much smaller volume of knowledge and enjoyed much less physical abundance than is available in modern society. But they knew how human beings should live and themselves lived in a more correct, down-to-earth way than we. We must prize them and attempt to emulate them spiritually in all we do, because they possessed something incomparable, more profound than modern man possesses. End of book. Let's see. I think it's a very coherent, total view, and which is, you wonder now where, and it comes from East and West together. I mean, this is one of Ikeda, one of the greatest of the Easterners, and Peccei. Peccei, not just he's not just a university boffin. I mean, he's been around everywhere. And I think it's interesting that they come out with something just as radical as this. You're answering in a way to what we were talking about before. Where do we want to go? Not bad. I think not bad. Anyway,
Kind of much the same.